Let's talk about your traveling, Gregor. You were quite unavailable the last couple of weeks. You were on site in Andorra, working with Premier Israel Tech's Mike Woods, who friend of Flo, Canadian. We're going to be seeing a lot more of him this year, I have the feeling. But then also, independently of this trip, you had the opportunity to go out to Copenhagen and preview the first three stages of this year's Tour de France, which for the first time the tour's never been to Denmark before, and so you had quite the experience. Just let's hear about all your adventures and what you were doing and what you got accomplished out there.
Well, it was quite a trip, and I guess let's talk about the most recent one first with Michael Woods, our Canadian friend up there, and he's living at. I stayed first of all Andorra. Many people don't know about this country, but it's a small country. It's a micronation up there in the up there in the Pyrenean Mountains between France and Spain, and it has Europe's highest capital at 1,000 meters. But then Mike lives another 1,000 meters up, which is a 20-minute drive from where I stayed in the capital, Andorra la Vella. And he has a place at 2,000 meters. And that's where him and his wife and his 2-year-old girl and their 1-year-old boy, that's where they live. And so Mike can live and train at altitude. And hopefully that'll pay off as he makes another bid for that mountains jersey. And he tells us, and our viewers will see this in all the upcoming feature interviews that we have with Mike. Sat down with him. He made me a coffee there in his house too, and they had a little heart design on it. I think we developed quite a relationship, Mike and I. But he was telling me that his aim is again that mountains jersey, and he'd like to go for the Alpe d'Huez stage. Of course, any stage would do when you're talking about a stage win in the Tour de France. But I had a chance to follow him out training, working with a videographer there, and got some awesome drone shots. And you're there in this climbers playground because you're there in the Pyrenees and massive mountains up everywhere. There we see some footage of Mike with his long hair coming out of the back of his helmet and his vest flapping in the wind. And this is just, when you're looking at this, just is like 3 kilometers from where Mike lives. And in fact, him and his family's moving into a new place here soon, just nearby. But that area is an area where teams go and train and hold team camps. And that day I saw Intermarché out on a team training camp with a follow car, Movistar, and another team that's not coming to name right now. But so massive cycling area and a beautiful area, and it's great to see Mike as he pushes on for the Tour de France. Now, a little bit of insider information, and we may see him racing a couple times before the Tour de France. His plan was not to do so because he's got that Vuelta a España that he's aiming at afterwards, after the Tour de France. And I think there he's going to have a crack at the overall. Whereas in the Tour de France, we're going to see Mike racing 4 stages, again, that mountains jersey. And it looks like his teammate, Jacobsen, for the overall, and Chris Froome will be fetching bottles for the team.
Wow. Well, it's good to hear that his training is going so well, and
Yeah.
you're right, Andorra is an absolute tiny little country, but that
3 times the
backdrop of the
size as Washington, D.C., Andorra.
wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. But then so you went there secondly, but you were in Copenhagen first, right? I think I got those backwards.
Right, and to fly to Andorra. Andorra is one of the only 5 countries in the world without an airport, and so you have to fly to
Right.
France or to Spain to get there unless you own a jetpack. Before that was to Denmark, and to preview those first 3 stages of the Tour de France, and we were able to work with. There you are up there. You see those 3 stages, and they're like 1,000 kilometers down until stage 4, which is in the north of France. And it's going to be beautiful because in Denmark they are cycling mad. And I was up there, I think, for 2011 when the World Championships were going on, and 2012 for the Volta a España. Excuse me, for the Giro d'Italia that began up there in Herring. But there you see some footage of some of the cyclists riding around there, and in that town, cyclists rule. And you see so many people out on bikes. It's a flat, beautiful countryside, and we were blessed with sunshine in those days. Working with a Trek Sigafredo rider, friend of Mads Pedersen, Jakob Eholm, and he showed us around stages 2 and 3 there in the countryside. Of course, stage 2 ends with that beautiful, I think it was at one point the longest suspension bridge in the world, but we're guaranteed of crosswinds out there. Guaranteed of crosswinds out there. It's going to be the Tour de France is already so much stress in those opening days, and with the crosswinds, with this bridge, the end stage 2, it's going to be blowing up. Stage 3, you're going to be down there in the south towards the border of Germany. Another beautiful day, and that's if we don't get a bunch sprint in stage 1, stage 3 should see our first bunch sprint. Now, going back to stage 1, I had the chance of meeting up with an old friend, Brian Holm, sports director of Quick Step Alpha Vinyl. There he is. He's king of cool. He's a council member of on the Copenhagen City Council, and of course, just in my eyes, the king of Copenhagen. But he broke it all down for us, and kind of the history of Danish cycling as well. You know, how things have come along since Bjarne Riis's Tour de France win, and the previous generation, the current crop of generation led by Jakob Fuglsang. But now we have this current crop of Valgren, with Magnus Kort, and so many other riders like Mads Pedersen as well. And all those, and Casper Asgren, we can't forget about him. All those riders are going to be aiming for that yellow jersey in those first days. They're all going to be trying to go for that 13-kilometer time trial, and if they don't get the win there, they're going to be trying for bonus seconds on stage 2, and that's just going to add to the stress in the environment. And you can be sure the roads there will be lined by local Danish fans. It's going to be a good day out. Everybody drunk on Carlsberg, I can imagine that day with those red and white flags flying. Yeah, I'll have a Carlsberg for us there, Jessica, for FloBikes, just as you do. When I was up there last, I was actually drinking red wine at the end of each day to kind of decompress after those preview days. But we got some great content that's going to be coming up on FloBikes, so our viewers should get quite a lot out of this preview trip and a better understanding of what we're going to have coming up on July 1 when the race kicks off in Copenhagen, Jessica.
Yep, that's absolutely right. Of course, live and on demand, FloBikes. In Canada, we'll be showing the Tour de France. Gregor, it's so great to have you today. I am so envious of this trip, and you've made some good points about how those first 3 stages are really going to be kind of nerve-wracking and definitely set the tone for the tour. But again, as we've mentioned, that's the normal Tour de France in the first opening stages. And so it's great to see the backdrop of Denmark this year, something different than what we've had in the past. Why don't you close us out? I know that there was a clip that you wanted to share with us about who's going to be racing potentially.
Yeah, we saw Mark Cavendish win a stage recently in the Giro d'Italia, and that really kind of heated up this whole controversy about whether or not Quick Step Alpha Vinyl should take Mark Cavendish, who has 34 stage wins in the Tour de France. And if he wins one more, he beats the record of the great Eddie Merckx for stage wins in the Tour de France. Or should they take their Dutch sprinter, Fabio Jacobsen? So let's end with that. Jessica, thank you, and see you next week.
Awesome. Take care.
Should Mark Cavendish race the Tour de France in 2022, starting here in Copenhagen in Denmark, having a shot to get that record 35th stage victory in the Tour de France and beating the great Eddie Merckx? Last year he tied him, but this year it seems as though Quick Step might be taking his other sprinter, Dutchman Fabio Jacobsen. So the question is, even with Mark winning a stage already recently in the Giro d'Italia, should the team take Mark or should they take Fabio? That remains to be seen.